your scooter or whatever your device is and walk it across. Don't ride it across, because a lot of times these bikes and these skateboards, they're going to go across the roadways very quickly, and you don't always have a lot of time to adjust to that. I would also want to bring up, be aware, and that goes for people in cars, that goes for pedestrians or people on these devices. Be aware of what's around you. Don't just dart out in front of traffic. Don't ride recklessly in heavily pedestrian filled walkways. Already we have regulations on campus. You're not supposed to be on these devices under covered walkways in heavily populated parts of campus, or right adjacent to the buildings. We ask that people be aware of that. And also, and it was alluded to before, I'd like to bring up the fact that it's very important, even though in the state of Florida you don't have to wear a helmet on a bicycle unless you're under the age of 16, I recommend helmets and other safety equipment when you're using any of these devices. If anyone who's been around and seen slow speed crashes with whether it's skateboards, bikes, scooters, whatever, head injuries can very easily occur. So we recommend that the people here on campus take advantage of those when they're operating these vehicles. Lastly, I just, to wrap this up, we all have to share the roadways and the sidewalks on campus together. So again, we just want to educate, and we want to bring this to everyone's attention moving forward, so that we can have a nice, safe campus and we can save lives and prevent injury. Thank you.
Real quick.
Yes.
How big of a presence do e-wheels have here on campus, and what would you say that you're seeing in terms of people taking the proper safety precautions?
I can say a heavy presence. I've been here 8 years, and in my 8 years, every year it seems like we see a little bit more, especially the e-scooters, the e-bikes and the e-scooters, but the scooters especially. We're just seeing a lot more people, and I'm seeing a lot more people riding from off campus into campus. So they're actually out on the roadways, not necessarily here on campus. They're out on the roadways in Jacksonville riding these devices. So that's why this is so important.
Can you name maybe a specific situation that's happened on campus which is maybe a reason why you're sounding the alarm on this issue?
Well, we've received a lot of complaints, and that's been from faculty, staff, and other students. A lot of complaints of people kind of zooming in and out of the pedestrians on campus. Fortunately, I pulled the stats for the last year. We've really only had one injury attributed to a scooter, and that wasn't even involving anyone else. It was just an accident that someone had on a scooter. But I want to get the message out there now before we do have serious problems.
So you're being proactive when it comes to that rather than reactive when it comes to these issues?
Yes, ma'am.
So it's a trend with young people. Is that another reason why you and AAA have decided, hey, we want to address this right here on campus, because a lot of young people are starting to ride these vehicles and these devices?
Yes, it is. There's definitely an increase, and I'm glad you brought up the proactive versus reactive. We always want to be proactive, and whenever we here at UPD, when we see a trend developing, we like to, when we're moving into doing something about it, we always start with education first. We don't want to jump into enforcement. We're more concerned with saving lives and preventing injury than we are with the enforcement portion of it. So we've been doing frequent deployments where we issue verbal warnings and written warnings both. And we're in the education phase right now.
What message would you have for students who have one, they just got one, they want to ride it around campus? What message would you have for them as they're going to hit these roads and on campus? Be
careful, be alert, watch, have your head on a swivel, watch for cars, watch for pedestrians, obey the university regulations when it comes to don't ride these things under covered walkways and areas with heavy pedestrian traffic and in the roadways.
Do you think students are following the rules of the road they would in a car as they are if they're on an e-bike or e-scooters, or do you think that there's maybe a disconnect there?
I think a lot of them are, but there's some that I believe that just aren't really aware. And that's why we're doing this education piece. The ones that we stop will tell us frequently, I just had no idea. And then they'll correct their behavior. So that's why we're doing the education piece, is to correct that behavior and then hopefully save lives, prevent
Are you
injury.
concerned, though, that they are driving potentially, like, or riding like this? I know you mentioned that they're going from, like, off campus to on campus. Are you worried about their safety even trying to get to school or from school?
I'm worried about everybody's safety all the time. That's what I do. And so if there's a potential that I can do something that's going to improve somebody's safety, I want to do that.
There's been some areas that have just seen double the amount of crashes, specifically, for example, you have St. Johns County, even in Duval County. What was your reaction when you learned that there's just been this drastic increase in these types of crashes? Your reaction to that?
In the community or here on
campus?
campus?
In general, like this trend.
Well, I'm always concerned with traffic crashes. My main concern now in my role is the campus. And I know that we're not seeing an increase here on campus. We're holding pretty steady. But anytime that I hear that there's been an increase anywhere in the community, it's a concern to me.
Do you think for the future of just campus safety, you could see students having to register their e-bike or e-scooter the same way they register a car or get a parking permit or something like that?
I have no way of knowing that. That would come from elsewhere in the university. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy.
Of course.
All right. So again, our efforts here are not to say that you should not use an e-bike, an e-scooter. These are viable modes of transportation. For a lot of kids, this is their main source of transportation, getting from home to school, getting from home to work, you name it. But the importance is ensuring that you're being safe while using them. On the way in here, for us, from AAA, I haven't really been to UNF. This is not me, this is the drill. On our way in, you see a lot of raised sidewalks, right? And yet you look down the sidewalk and you see that the approach to these crosswalks are pretty long, like bridges, and these are connections from other parking lots. And if you're on an e-scooter, you might just assume that, hey, it's okay to zip on through and then here's the crosswalk. I got the right of way, I can just zip across. But the reality is, if you're coming 40 miles an hour into that crosswalk, cars might not be expecting to see you, and they're preparing to drive across that, and they could collide with you. So everyone has a responsibility in this, especially those who are using e-devices, to ensure that as you're approaching traffic, you're doing your best to protect yourself. Because you might technically have the right of way, but that vehicle is very heavy, and if it slams into you, it didn't matter who has the right of way, you're dealing with some serious injuries. So with that, we want to pivot into injuries, because it's not just a college situation. This is an issue that's really spreading across the state, and it affects all age groups. Just driving through my neighborhood, I'll see children who are riding around on their e-scooters without helmets on. And you'll have adults who are riding without helmets. For some reason, parents have embraced the idea that you should wear a helmet while you're riding your bicycle, but maybe those same children aren't wearing a helmet while they're riding these e-scooters, and that's a concern. So we're seeing injuries popping up everywhere, and they're seeing it in trauma centers. So here to talk more about the type of injuries they're seeing is the Trauma Injury Prevention and Outreach Coordinator at UF Health Jacksonville's trauma program. Please welcome Rebecca Melvin.
Thank you. So my job is to try to keep people from coming into the hospital from doing silly things. So I will never not have a job, basically. Today, with e-bikes and e-scooters, it's definitely a whole lot more difficult, especially when you look at the age ranges in which those that are riding them, this is not just an adult problem, just not a kid problem, it's really an everyone problem. So what we're seeing and what hospitals, really trauma centers across the region, the state, and the country are seeing is very serious injuries that take a very short amount of time for someone to get. So with a regular bike, the one that we all grew up with, it was super common to have a friend who broke their wrist or broke their ankle. What we're seeing with these, because the speed is so much faster, you're going 20 to 28 miles an hour, if they haven't modified the device, you're seeing an increase in head injuries, not just traumatic brain injuries, but skull fractures and facial fractures. These are the things that we normally see with motorcycle wrecks, not a 7-year-old on a bicycle. We're seeing pelvic fractures, which is quite unusual for someone on a bicycle. The orthopedic injuries is not just an isolated wrist or an isolated ankle. We're seeing multiple bones broken, which means the healing process for all of this is not go to the hospital and get a cast and go home. People are being admitted to the hospital and then potentially having to go to rehab. These injuries can take months to years to fix if they ever truly heal. So why am I standing up here kind of screaming into the, into the sky about this? Because we're seeing like a massive increase in people coming into the hospital of all ages, and a lot of this is truly preventable. So if you have an e-bike, these days e-bikes, the very new ones, can be about the same weight as a traditional bicycle. Most e-bikes can be twice as heavy as a regular bike. So you can have a 60-pound child if they're on an adult e-bike on a 70-pound bike. That is a recipe for disaster, period. They don't have the balance that's needed for it. A small child does not have the situational awareness in traffic that an adult has. Adults still run red lights. We can't expect a 13 or 14-year-old to recognize, oh, it's a stop sign. Do I really have to stop? Can I roll? Can I jet out into the road? And if someone's going 28 miles an hour on an e-bike, me as a motorist going 40 miles an hour, I literally don't have the stopping power to stop fast enough to prevent myself from hurting that person, from running into that person. So it's not just a kid issue, it's not just an adult issue, it's an everyone issue. We have rental scooters all over the city of Jacksonville now. So you don't even have to own your own scooter. You can rent an e-scooter, pick it up, go somewhere else. When they went into service, kind of everybody was surprised by it because motorists didn't know that there were scooters suddenly on the road. Law enforcement didn't know that there's suddenly all these scooters on the road downtown. And then the hospitals, all of a sudden, we had patients coming in with scooter injuries. It was quite surprising pretty much to everyone. The cost of these devices has come down dramatically over the past several years, so accessibility is there. Modification of these devices as well is also a dangerous thing. They have lithium-ion batteries. I'm not with the fire department. I'll let the fire department talk to the fire dangers with that. But kids are really smart, so they'll modify the motors on these, so that while there might be a governor that stops them going, 15 to 20 miles an hour, they're actually going a whole lot faster because they've modified them. Because kids are smart. The other issue with it when we're talking about kids is kids have a sense of, I am invincible, right? For some of us, it never goes away. With kids, that's literally how they get to learn in the world. They see the world through, big eyes and things like, I'm going to try that. That's fine when you're not going 28 miles an hour with zero protection, zooming down the road with a complete lack of knowledge as to how traffic works. So how do we fix this issue? So me, with my little injury prevention hat on, I can't take things away from people. I think that people should have the absolute right to get out into the community, get out of their communities, be able to commute in safe and efficient ways. On campus, when I was in college, that would have been great to have an e-bike to be able to get from class to class. It would have made my life, since I run late all the time, a whole lot easier. If we're going to do it, though, you need to make sure that you know that the vehicle that you're buying is appropriate for the use in which you're going to be using it. So if you have a small child that cannot walk straight on a sidewalk, should you actually be putting them on a bike that has the potential to go 15 to 20 to 28 miles an hour? Are they going to be able to ride in a straight line and stop appropriately? Is the device big enough for the person? So the e-scooters that we have that are rental throughout Jacksonville, they're adult-sized scooters. I see children on them. They're standing like this and they can't even get their head above the handlebars. There is zero protection on a scooter. If you fall, you fall. So if you're going into oncoming traffic, or you fall into the street, you are going to get hit by a car. That is what will happen if it's a busy roadway. It's absolutely terrible. We want to make sure that if you are buying them, you do your research on what the right device is. Is this e-bike actually have a governor? Does this e-bike, will I be okay with my child potentially going up to 28 miles an hour or faster? Is this something that's actually legal? I've had lots of conversations with law enforcement on there are e-bikes that are not legal in the state of Florida. If they don't have pedals, they're not legal. You can't have just throttle only. So if this is something that you are considering buying, can you even ride it in the area in which you're intending to ride it? And then lastly on it, the one piece of protection that we really have is helmets. Unfortunately, helmets like this, so this is a regular bike helmet, this is a multi-sport helmet here. These are CPSC certified. So that means that they have been tested and they are certified for impacts up to 20 miles an hour. Big thing with all of these e-bikes and e-scooters and electric skateboards and the electric unicycles, all of those one wheels, they all go faster than that. So if you wear one of these, your head is not actually protected like it's intended to, because these are not made for that. What we should actually be looking at is a helmet. So this is I'm not plugging products, I promise I don't get paid by them, but this is an NTA 8776 certified helmet. So this is actually a certification, it's a Dutch certification. In Europe, they've had e-bikes for much longer than we have here. This helmet is rated up to 28 miles an hour. So if you're buying something that goes fast, at the very minimum, you should be making sure that you have the safety equipment that goes along with it. Will this prevent someone from dying if they get hit by a car? No. If it's you on an e-bike or a scooter versus a car, the car's gonna win every single time. They're just going to. We are squishy, the car is not. This will protect your head, it will displace some energy, it might lessen the likelihood of having a traumatic brain injury, it'll protect your skull. These will not work. And if you're in an accident and you hit your head, you need a new helmet. You can't just have one helmet, leave it outside, drop your bike a bunch of times, fall on your head and continue using it. The integrity of the helmet does go bad after a while. So long story short, I think that people should be able to go out into the community and have fun and ride on scooters and ride on bikes and do, great family events. This is Florida. We're outside, 364 days out of the year. We should be able to enjoy the weather. I just want families to make the right decisions for their kids and themselves. And if you're an adult and you're deciding to buy one of these devices for yourself, it's a vehicle. Obey the traffic laws. Understand that there's ordinances, even within our own city, that dictate where you can and cannot ride it. And be safe while riding them. All right, that's what I got.
Any questions?
Yes, I noticed this safety vest here. Do you also suggest that people wear that so they're seen maybe at night?
Absolutely, high visibility. So I can say that, and this is everywhere, when daylight savings ends or begins, or when it's darker in the morning, all facilities see an increase in pedestrian versus auto, bike versus auto, because people that are normally out on the road early in the day have less visibility. So if you're gonna be out on the road, high visibility stuff, you should not be riding at night wearing all black with a black helmet. You have to have lights on your bike. That's actually a state law. You need to have visibility. We share the road, right? It's our responsibility. A bicycle is a vehicle. It just is. That's why you're supposed to get off of it and walk it across crosswalks, because at that point you turn into a pedestrian. You're not a vehicle going across a crosswalk. You're a pedestrian at that point. So high visibility stuff. These e-bike helmets, and there's regular helmets as well. They actually have lights, I don't know if this one will work, on the back of them as well to increase your visibility. Pretty much anything that you could do to give yourself a leg up on the road in case there is a driver that's not paying attention. You want to do that.
I know that you said that you respond to people with injuries with this. It's been an increase probably in the trauma unit. What are some of the examples of the injuries that you've treated where you're like, okay, this is a serious problem?
A lot of head injuries. There's been and this is not just a Jacksonville problem. This is, I sit on some national committees, a national problem, a massive increase in head injuries that you just don't see with regular bikes or regular scooters. The energy, if you're going 28 miles an hour and you hit a parked car, the amount of energy that you are currently, you have within you when you hit that parked car or that wall or whatever it might be is substantially higher than if somebody hit a rock in the road and fell over and kind of dinged their head. Facial fractures, big issue with that. The orthopedic injuries are really, really bad as well. I read a paper a little while ago, and I cannot remember the state, so don't quote me on it, where there is an area where children were having patellar injuries and needing patella replacements. Like that, we should not have that. Like we shouldn't be at this point in society with being as smart as we are, where we have kids that instead of getting a childhood injury of a broken wrist are getting patella replacements. That's absolutely bizarre. And these head injuries, a head injury can take years to recover from if somebody ever truly recovers from it. We have one brain. You've got one shot at this life at making a really good go at it. Making one silly decision can really completely destroy that whole option of having a great life. So yeah, head injuries is really a big, big, big problem. The orthopedic injuries are a big, big, big problem.
So they'll have like long-term, effects from this, like memory loss, those types of things from the head injury?
Yeah, I mean, that's what they are. Your brain's kind of the consistency of Jell-O. If you wreck it, there's not another one. We haven't figured out how to do brain transplants just yet. So that's a kind of a big issue. And the helmet is not going to completely diminish your risk of getting a traumatic brain injury. It'll displace some of that energy actually going through you. So hopefully the helmet helps absorb some of that. It really protects your skull as well. But yeah, a lot of these injuries, you could have lifelong consequences due to making just one ill decision, really.
Is there a difference between the type of injuries you see from e-bike users versus e-scooters?
So e-scooters offer no protection. So with a bicycle, if you lay the bike down, I mean, you might have some sort of slowing of momentum. We've seen people here and we've seen people regionally and nationally where they're thrown from the scooter as well. The e-scooters, they don't necessarily, like, when the battery dies on them, it's not like I'm rolling and I can kick it. They kind of die. So that's kind of a big issue there. And then the other issue with e-scooters is because of the rental, people don't know what they're doing. So what do? So I'm walking around downtown or wherever it is, Orlando, wherever I might be, I see an e-scooter, oh, I'm gonna go ahead and rent this. I have never been on one ever in my entire life, and there are no helmets available for them. So someone who has no knowledge whatsoever of how they work, and if you watch people when they get on them at first, they're not like getting on and immediately going. They get on, they kind of like jerk forward because they're trying to get used to it. That in combination with just general traffic is just an absolute recipe for disaster. These patients end up with like traumatic brain injuries, head injuries, pretty much anywhere. Orthopedic injuries as well. We've seen abdominal injuries from them. They kind of, if someone's attempting to balance on it and they jet out into the road and get hit by a car, I mean, you guys can use your imagination as to what kind of injuries that would be if someone's going normal speed and hits someone who's just happens to be out in the road all of a sudden because their scooter ended up in the road unintentionally.
What about collisions with pedestrians?
That's another issue. So while the person riding the vehicle might not be injured, you have pedestrians literally jumping out of the way. So I did hear what the officer was saying before, that this has been based on complaints. There are municipalities that have decided that e-bikes and e-scooters maybe shouldn't be on sidewalks. Atlantic Beach has actually decreased their miles per hour. I think you can only ride 10 miles an hour on sidewalks now, and that's to help protect both the rider and the pedestrians as well. Because it's not just pedestrian like I'm an adult, it's also kids on the road. And you have to think, like, if you just watch a small child, I say small, like 3, 7, 10, walk on a sidewalk, are they ever walking in a straight line, paying attention to their surroundings? They're not. Their situational awareness is just not there because they're a child. That's just how that works. So when you add a high-speed vehicle to the road with that, the chance or the opportunity for a life-changing accident is actually quite high.
Can I just get your name and title and all that good stuff again?
Yep, Rebecca Melvin, RebeccaMelvin, and I'm the Trauma Injury Prevention and Outreach Coordinator for the trauma programs, both pediatric and adult, at UF Health Jacksonville.
That's a long title.
Yeah.
How's that gonna fit on the line?
And you were nervous.
It's not-
I was.
Great.
Thank you, that was
Man.
very good.
Yeah, fantastic. Could you tell she was nervous? No, I couldn't.
I'm sorry.
No, I think you did fantastic.
First time doing this, we can tell.
You guys have content for days. I mean, like, you could do so many different angles from this. I mean, from, the scooter's side, from the driver's side, from even the pedestrian side. I mean, last night we were having dinner over in Jacksonville Beach, and you have the restaurant, you have this little strip of walkway, right, where all the pedestrians and bicyclists go, and then the dunes. And just along that walkway, there are e-bikes and scooters zipping along 30 miles an hour, 40 miles an hour, and as it was getting darker, they were still going, and many of them didn't have lights, and you have people like me who are stepping out of the restaurant area onto that sidewalk, not looking for a 40-mile-per-hour, device coming at me. So that's an inherent danger too. I mean, and so it's important for the e-scooters and bicyclists to ensure that they're watching out for pedestrians and being very careful in these heavily populated areas. So talk want to restate, AAA is not here to, to villainize e-bikes and e-scooters. You know, again, we are here to ensure that everybody shares the road safely and is doing the best that they can to ensure the safety of everybody. Now, we covered a lot of the tips. Let's just go through them one more time. This is for riders from AAA. We suggest that you obey all traffic laws and signals. Follow the rules of the road. When you get to an intersection and you see a car, make eye contact with that driver before crossing into their path. Ensure that they see you. Don't assume that you're seen. Be visible. Wear bright colored clothing. Have lights on your bicycle, on your scooter, on your helmet, whatever the case may be. Avoid distractions. We see a lot of scooter and e-bike users who are still looking down at their phone and have earbuds in. Take the earbuds out, put the phone down while you're riding. You need to be able to anticipate any potential hazards like approaching vehicles, because if you don't know they're coming, you're not going to know to get out of the way. Don't ride impaired. That is becoming a big issue on campuses where you have college students who are using their e-scooter to get home from a party. They don't think they're driving drunk because they're not driving a vehicle. But if you're driving a scooter that's going the same speed as a vehicle, the risk is just the same. And if you're not wearing a helmet, the risk is even worse. So make sure you're not driving impaired. Make sure you're not sharing scooters. That increases the risk as well. And make sure you're wearing a helmet. We talked about it. There's a helmet with a brain right on it. You only have one brain, and that helmet is there to protect it. You know, a helmet, even if it's not rated properly, is better than no helmet at all. So we spoke to a 14-year-old who was hit by a car just yesterday on his e-bike, and he had a basic bicycle helmet. It's not necessarily rated for an e-bike, but doctors said that this was just enough to save his life because his head was caught in the engine block of that car. And we saw the helmet. I can send you pictures if you like. It was pretty messed up, but that was the one thing that saved his life. So make sure you're doing your research. Ensure you have a helmet that's rated for the device you're using. But remember, any helmet is better than no helmet at all. Advice for parents. Create a riding contract with your child. Ensure that you establish where they can go on these devices, how fast they can go, and when they can ride. And set some enforcement options. You know, let them know that there are going to be punishments if you violate these rules. And then you can also look at the device, and there are apps that allow you to control how fast this device can go and where it can go. So as a parent, you have that control. And of course, ensure your child wears a helmet. And finally, last thing, and then we'll let you go. For drivers, remember, we have to share the road. Pedestrians, bicyclists, they all have the right to use the road as well. So we have to remember to look for them. Slow down. Give extra space to these users when you're approaching them. And when you're at a stoplight, a stop sign, don't just roll through them. You have to remember that we have very fast-moving devices now that are sharing the road with us. You have to come to a complete stop and ensure you're looking left, right, left, maybe even right again, just to ensure that the coast is clear before you go. So with that, if we have any more questions, I feel like we covered a lot.
Can you just say and spell your first and last name and your title,
Yep,
please?
sure. My name is Mark, M-A-R-K, last name Jenkins, J-E-N-K-I-N-S, AAA spokesman is fine.
And guys, it was Adam Brown, Deputy Chief from UPD, ADM, BR Equipment.
Okay, awesome.
All right, anything else?
That's it.
Cool.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all for coming. Good luck logging.